The original vision of CloudOne was a cloud-based, full app stack, automated platform for DevOps application creation and operations. That was the kind of unifying vision that we had when we started building this almost 2 years ago. So what were the goals we had for CloudOne? And actually these goals remain today. So first, increase the speed of application change delivery to meet rapidly changing business needs. That goes back to that slide where you had the traditional IT, you had the agile IT, and you had DevOps IT. So if we're trying to be DevOps IT, we need to increase the speed of application change delivery. Second, focus the developers on writing code and releasing application changes, not dealing with other IT services. So we don't want our developers to spend time managing AWS and managing OpenShift and writing automation scripts. We want them to be fully serviced by the platform so they can spend their time writing application code and releasing changes to those applications. And then when we think about automation for the third goal, we want to provide automation for frequent but small production application changes to reduce production deployment risk. So you go back to that slide again where I had the traditional IT, Agile, and DevOps IT. In the traditional IT model where you're doing an application release once a month or once a quarter, there's a lot of risk that goes into those application releases. There's hundreds of changes they've been working on for weeks or months that you try to put into one release. And that's usually when you take the application down on a Saturday night, you put all the changes in, you reboot the whole environment, and you bring it all back up, and you cross your fingers that everything works well on Monday morning. That's a lot of risk. And we want to eliminate that risk in CloudOne by using automation to do releases, and when we do releases, make them small. And then finally, reduce costs by using open source application stacks and dynamic cloud services. So use the cloud when we need to it, but when we don't turn it off and not use it. Really get to that dynamic environment that cloud offers. All right, so now a little more timeline. This is specifically about CloudOne. We started the journey on CloudOne almost 2 years ago. It was the fall of 2017 when my boss at the time said, hey, we want to get to a next generation data center. And I kind of joke and say, well, what is that? And he said, I don't know, go figure it out. So it was a work between me, him, our cloud architect, and actually, ironically, our storage manager, who worked together over a series of weeks to come up with the initial vision of what we thought our DevOps platform should be. And that led to a lot of advocacy across IT and NetApp that ultimately culminated in a project beginning about 6 months later in the spring of 2018. That team was my organization with all the automation and service management teams combined with the infrastructure team and the cloud team, and security and operations were also involved. We created a minimal viable product definition of what we thought our minimal viable DevOps platform should be, and worked toward delivering that, and we ultimately released the MVP on November 1st of last year. Through the rest of the rest of fall 2018 and into the spring of 2019, we've been adding more capabilities to the platform. We added cloud volumes for AWS storage. So whenever we spin up containers in AWS and those containers request a persistent volume, that persistent volume is serviced by NetApp Cloud Volumes now. We created a neat feature called VM autoscaling, and I'll have a slide about that coming up, to add capacity to OpenShift nodes. So whenever OpenShift runs low on VM capacity because of increasing containers, we can dynamically create new VMs to service OpenShift, and then we can destroy those VMs when they're no longer needed. And then most importantly, in the second half of this work, we built a new private cloud running HCI. So originally at MVP on November 1st last year, all workloads were deployed into AWS. Now we have a private cloud to augment AWS, and I'll show you in an upcoming slide where AWS fits in and where private cloud fits in. And the last thing we really created was a continuing operating model, and this is where we're trying to, what I call, organize the humans. The biggest challenge I think we've had in this project and continue to have is just making sure we keep everyone focused, prioritized, and delivering on dates, because it's a matrix organization that creates and maintains CloudOne. It's just not just my team. So making sure we have a right operating model in place so we can continuously work on CloudOne and release new platform capabilities is important to continue to service the DevOps teams. And then where we're going in the future. So we're in our Q1 of FY20, which is right now in a calendar year 20, or excuse me, calendar year 19. So we're doing things like we're updating our DevOps service catalog with simplified provisioning, and I'll show you how when I get to the demo, we'll show you how for a development team you can choose almost all the things you need at the initial onboarding. I'm doing a cost analysis and cost allocation model. It gets very interesting and challenging to allocate costs in a DevOps environment when you're dealing with ephemeral workloads that containers spin up, they run for an hour a day, and then they spin down or they're destroyed, along with a lot of the overhead costs when you talk about platform capabilities and automation environments and developer tools and stuff like that. So how we actually calculate all those costs and then allocate those costs is an interesting challenge I'm working on. And then we're getting things like tier 1 application support. So we do have production applications running on the platform today, but we're tracking on the end of October to run critical applications on the platform, what we call tier 1 apps. So we're doing a lot from an operational maturity, documentation, and technology, let's call it resiliency perspective, to make sure we're comfortable running our most critical applications on CloudOne. And then we get in the future, more things will come on. We're POCing NetApp Kubernetes services as customer one. We're going to look at how and when we would use NKS. We're doing advanced application deployments and rollbacks. I talked about it before. We get the Canary releases and Blue-Green releases. And then I mentioned before, we're going to release container as a service to be an extra service that is different from DevOps. As we get in the future, we'll do things like automated cloud migrations as we get into advanced service mesh capabilities. But this timeline then gives us the ability to focus the team on the major deliverables that we're working on for the next, what amounts to 18 months. Okay, and so where are we in a DevOps maturity model? I like to share this slide. I found this model online about 2 years ago, and I think it's very useful in telling people where we think we sit in a DevOps maturity model. And right now, I think we're about level 3. So level 1, ad hoc, if you leave the bullets there, but I kind of joke and I say, well, if you're at level 1 and you say you're doing DevOps, I like to joke and say you're really lying to yourself. You're not doing DevOps. When you get to level 2, repeatable, that's when I like to say you're doing pockets of DevOps. So maybe your development team is doing some, and a shadow IT team is doing some, and maybe part of your infrastructure organization is doing some DevOps. So different pockets of DevOps, but it's not in a end-to-end process that can be leveraged. Level 3 defined is where I feel we're at today, and you can read the different bullets there. The important one, though, is in the center there, which is processes automated across the software delivery lifecycle. So can you automate from a code submission change all the way through to production? And we've done that, and I'll show you how that works in the slides coming up in the demonstration. That's the important part, is have you coordinated your different automation capabilities enough that you can automate your software delivery lifecycle? And then level 4 and level 5 are more the advanced levels of DevOps. So right now we would be at a continuous delivery model where we haven't automated every step of the CI/CD process. There's some testing stuff we still pause for, but we can move all the way to production. Continuous deployment is where we get those advanced application models where we say, no, we can automatically push everything to production because we built the risk mitigating factors in from an application perspective, both automated testing and capability to roll back when necessary. And then level 5, continuous operations, is really where the born in the cloud companies are already running. So things like Netflix and Google and Facebook, really getting to those advanced DevOps capabilities. We hope to reach that in what amounts to about 2 years from now. So Q1 of calendar year 22, which would be our fiscal year 21, try to reach that continuous operations type capability.